Hi, I'm El from elbowpepper.com, and today I'm going to unbox a new LED grow light that I just received. Now this uses the latest technology in manufacturing, COB, chip on board, and this type of LED has the potential to increase efficiency by improving heat dissipation and thereby yielding a higher luminescence and PAR on a per watt basis. So what does that mean? That means that this can be a way for you to possibly get the best bang for your buck when it comes to LED grow lights. So that's the claim and potential that's out there, and we can talk a little bit more about the differences in the types of LEDs in a second. But first, let me tell you about this manufacturer or reseller that contacted me. They saw some of my reviews and they wanted me to do a review on this. So I was excited because I've used several different types of LED grow lights, but I've never actually been able to get my hands on a COB, and so they were willing to pay the majority of the cost of this just so that I can get this, show you how it's packaged, show you what it looks like, and be able to share this with you guys. And the first thing that we're going to do is unbox it. So let's open it up and let's see what we have. Alright, looks like we have a box inside a box. On the box itself, right here in the corner, it says LED light power 200 watt, 7 bands. So it has a lot of different wavelengths of light, 7 bands that it covers. This is the HHE 200 watt COB grow light, and this is supposed to be black. So, is it? Let's see. Got the hangers. Here it is. So with this type of foam in transit, these things are pretty well taken care of from what I've seen. You really don't have big issues with anything going wrong. They're nicely secured, and the first test that I learned after buying my first grow light: no loose pieces, no cheap rattling sound. We're off to a good start. Okay, here's the light. Very tight, small form factor. And that can mean a lot depending upon where you're trying to do this, what you're going for. Obviously, we're not looking at something that's at an industrial grade application, but my channel, my viewers, quite a bit of them are home gardeners, and for a hobbyist and a home gardener level, this has a lot of potential. So let's look here. We have these for the hanging clips, the wire. We have your regular on switch, and this is for the power. Other than that, we have a nice cooling fan, and once again it reiterates the model number, 200 watt, 7 band. And now let's look at where the light comes from. This is a different design than a lot of grow lights, LED grow lights that you may have seen if you haven't looked at COBs before. This has just a single wafer or chip, and on this, all of the different color diodes that are used to create all the different wavelengths, the different colors of light that are ideal for photosynthesis and plant growth, those are all embedded onto that single wafer. That's what a COB is. And then around this we have this reflector, which then helps to spread and dissipate that light on the target area so that you get a nice amount of coverage and hopefully a consistent amount of coverage for the area that it's supposed to be able to span. when I contacted the manufacturer because I wanted to know how much of an area are they claiming that this is going to work on, they said a 2 foot by 2 foot area, maybe as much as a 3 foot by 3 foot. But anywhere in the 20 some inches range, you're going to be able to get some good coverage according to the stated claims by the manufacturer. So looking at it and holding it, I like what I see so far. Why don't we get the camera in and take some close-up shots of this light so you can really see what it looks like. I thought it would be nice to just do a quick measure in inches, of course. We've got 7 inches by 7 inches. And how deep is this actual light? This looks like it's 3.5 inches. So 7 by 7 by 3.5. Now, how much does this weigh? Well, if you're hanging it, you might need to know that, right? So I have this scale set to ounces. And let's see. We're coming in at 45.5 ounces, which isn't bad. And it's definitely lighter than the UFO that I've been using. Here are all of the package contents of any significance. This is all that you get with your light. I didn't even have a manual inside, so it's not like I have anything telling me the coverage area, telling me the distance with which to use the light, or anything else like that. So that would be some good information, especially for a person who maybe doesn't have experience with something like this. That could definitely help them out. But that aside, let's look at the light itself. You can see the labeling on there. The switch, the connectors, everything as I stated. This has some nice venting on the sides, and I can feel a lot of weight, which right away I'm able to identify as actually being a nice copper heatsink. And I want to see if I can try to show you this inside here. There we go. So visibly, this looks to me like a copper heatsink. So it looks like it's equipped well, from what I can see, to be able to stay cool and thereby have a nice long life. Now, look at the actual face of this light. Here we have our reflector. We have a little bit of some venting as well on this side of the panel. Now, where this reflector is, there's no plastic cover, so I could actually kind of put my hand down in through here. But I would think that that helps with not losing any lumens, and it also probably helps with maintaining good heat dissipation. And now, as we come in even closer, you can start to see there are all of those individual colors of diodes that are used in this system. Every single one of these is connected to this single circuit board, and that is what makes a COB light. But something tells me that you would like to see this lighting up, right? I thought so. Let's turn it on. It's always fun showing two products side by side, isn't it? So here's my Apollo UFO, the 180 watt as it's labeled, and here is the 200 watt as it's labeled from HHE, the COB light. Now, let's light them up. Let's look at the light first for my Apollo 180 watt UFO grow light. And now, let's check out this HHE COB 200 watt light. If you want to get a diameter that spans, let's say, 30 inches, then probably you're looking at a distance of 14 inches. So if you're shooting for a 24-inch diameter, then probably around 11 or 12 inches is all that you need distance-wise to achieve that. With the traditional SMD type of technology, you have a lot of different colors that are all spread out across the circuit. On this light, this panel is actually covered with a layer of plastic. I can feel a little bit of heat after this has been running for a minute or so. Now here we are on the COB from HHE, and there is no plastic. I can feel more heat radiating towards my hand. And so you may be concerned about a little bit more heat being generated from this light. But the fact that this isn't covered, that means that that heat is able to escape, and that should allow the light to be able to be cooled more effectively, since you're not putting a cover here holding in and trapping in all that heat. Interestingly as well though, as we look, all the colors of light are all formed inside of that tiny little area, and once they come out past the lens, they're all completely merged in a nice, homogeneous, consistent tone of color or light for your plants. One thing that there's no mistaking is that you can definitely hear the fans running from these LEDs. But as you look at the fan that's with this model, it's definitely a larger fan. Now oftentimes, in my experience with computers, a larger fan requires less RPMs and can be more quiet. Compare that to this much smaller fan. But which one are we really hearing? This is whisper silent, very, very quiet. You barely hear this small fan. Yet, because of the big heatsink and the highly efficient COB technology, it must be sufficient to adequately cool this. So, not only are we looking at a smaller form factor, but we're also looking at a quieter technology. So if I turn this off, yep, this is definitely much louder. COB LEDs. Chip on board. Well, how is this really so different from the predecessors in LED technology? Now, SMD means surface mounted device. And so the way that those are constructed, well, you have all of these individual diodes that are soldered onto a circuit board, and every single one of those has to be connected for every single light source that's in there. This is from an older UFO light, and some of these individual lights, some of them had failed. So I can come in and I can melt off the ones that are faulty, and I could actually put replacement ones in here to fix this. And immediately you can start to see some of the limitations. You have a lot more work that goes into constructing something like this. And then you have more that you have to deal with in way of heat resistance. And so you have to work harder to cool this. And if you have more heat dissipation that you have to concern yourself with, then you can lose efficiency, and you can also start to lose lifespan depending upon how much voltage you're driving through these. So this is a good technology, but let's just think specifically about the grow light application. Yes, you can get a nice consistent coverage by having a whole bunch of these, such as in a panel configuration, a whole bunch of these SMD LEDs that are all spread along a panel, and they can distribute that light across a pretty decent sized area. But now on the other hand, when you have a COB setup, you have all of those diodes right in the center on a single wafer. So the construction cost, the manufacturing cost, can be significantly lower, and managing the heat, you can just focus on a smaller area for heat dissipation, and it can give you a much smaller form factor. So the key is you have to also at the same time be able to distribute that light over the target area. Now, if you've done much research into COBs, you'll see that this is just the starting line, just the basic entry-level COB type of light. You'll have ones that have maybe 6 or even more that are all right next to each other, all built into a single unit that you can buy. And you can also take COB LEDs and you can put them in strips and then have a whole bunch of strips that you put in sequence to get just a crazy coverage area and to get very nice penetration of light into the canopy of the plants. COB lights, you're looking at often 80 lumens to 100 or even more lumens for every watt of power that gets pumped in to these lights. So very efficient, and that efficiency should translate into better plant growth when you're talking about grow lights. Okay, I'm doing this test. I've done this before, and I'm going to do it on this light too. It says power 200 watt. A watt is a measurement of energy consumption. It doesn't mean anything other than that. Now, you can put a label on something and say compares to or replaces. For example, look at this light here. You know, when everyone switched from incandescent to CFLs, they were so confused. They didn't know, the wattage was less, but it was putting out more light. So to help us out, it said 60 watt replacement uses 13 watts. Now, is this a 200 watt replacement for an incandescent grow light or something? It doesn't say that, so it's got to be using 200 watts. I asked the rep from HHE, how much power does it actually consume? And I was told 192 watts. And now I'm at this point where I actually want to double check, does it really consume 192 watts, which is close enough to 200 for me. Well, this is my little gauge that I'm able to use. So look at what I have. 84 watts of electricity are consumed by this light. There's no way to reconcile that, especially when the Amazon listing doesn't actually say anything other than 200 watt. Yes, it's a common practice, but that doesn't make it right. LED manufacturers should not be doing this. It makes it impossible to compare one light to another when they just arbitrarily pick any number that they want. So, what's my actual take on this light? Everything about the build quality seems fine. Am I going to try it out? Absolutely. However, I don't think that any manufacturers, that any LED sellers should be allowed to use a wattage as a part of a model number for a listing of a product. You shouldn't be able to call a light 200 watt unless it uses 200 watts. A watt is a unit of measurement. Now, if you want to say compare this to a 200 watt HID, fine, you can say compare it to, but you still have to disclose what the wattage consumption is. And whenever I contacted the actual person that wanted me to do this review and asked, what's the wattage consumption? And I was told 192 watts. I was almost inclined to take the person at their word because, well, where do you come up with 192 watts? I mean, that must be legit. But it obviously isn't. When you're comparing and you think that it's apples and apples, and you're looking at this light, that light, this one says that it's 180 watt, this one says that it's 200 watt, this one uses 85, this one uses 109. What is that? In the United States, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is supposed to regulate this. Any other light, if it says that it states a certain wattage, it's supposed to do that. So how can these guys get away with this on these LED grow lights? Is this even going to actually be able to keep up with this one? I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison, but I'm not that optimistic. Maybe it might be on par with this light. It's not going to exceed it by very much. Or maybe it won't at all. I'm going to find out. But for now, the only reason that I would tell someone that this is a good light to buy is if they think that an 85 watt COB LED grow light is worth the price that they're asking. And as long as somebody knows that that's all the more wattage that's being pumped into this, and they're okay with that, then that's great. Myself, personally, I'm very displeased that I was given a completely false number. I don't understand that. Why would someone do that? Did I get the wrong... No, I didn't get the wrong model number because it has a sticker on it that says 200 watts.
So enough of that. Let's just step back and look at this product overall and get some perspective. Pros and cons. What does this light have going for it? First of all, it is using a COB technology for its construction, which normally means the maximum in efficiency that you can get for any watt that is being pumped into this. Then two, it uses a nice full complement of colors, 7 bands, to try to stimulate plant growth. And it's coming in very heavy on the reds. So for you guys that are into budding, fruiting, flowering, it's definitely something to consider, even if it's supplemental. This also is a nice small form factor and it's lightweight, so that makes it very versatile in the different areas in which it can be placed and used. And along with that, the fan is very quiet from what I've observed, so it's less intrusive if you have it in a living space or anywhere else where you're around it all the time. Now, this seller does offer a 2-year warranty, and so that's pretty good. And the final pro, it only uses 84 watts. That's a pro because, well, the cost of operating this light is going to be lower than other ones that it may be comparable to. Now, what about the cons? COB technology is really good. However, don't think that you're going to be able to service this if maybe one of the diodes burns out. That's just not going to happen. And in fact, it's going to be hard for you to ever tell if an individual diode does burn out. Now, I have no idea personally as to whether or not that's an issue with these types of things, so maybe there's nothing to worry about there, but it's just something to keep in mind. In particular, when I received this, I had no direction whatsoever as to how to use this. We need to have documentation showing us how far away to put the light, how much of an area it can cover, and actually that type of stuff shouldn't just come in the box. That should be available to the consumer before they purchase it. Now, once you do get your purchase, you should have some follow-up documentation, some sort of a sheet or something, a printout that comes with this, giving you more details on how to properly use the light. And two, you need to have contact information if you ever do need to file a warranty claim. Otherwise, I guess you're going to be stuck having to try to go through Amazon somehow to do this, And I'm not particularly keen on doing that. I would much rather have a direct contact number and an actual address and even a website from the manufacturer or the seller. Finally, let's come back to that 84 watt. Yes, that's a con in the fact that people don't know that that's the consumption. If this is listed under the product specs on the page before a person buys it, then they're going to know, okay, this is how much it's using, and then hopefully they can find other manufacturers of similar products that list that information as well, so they can make an informed decision.
I think that COB LED technology is definitely promising. It's the way to go. Whether you're using a single reflector set up like this, or a multi-reflector, or maybe something that is set up very differently, using strips across a broad area, regardless, I think that COB has a lot to offer. So even if this light isn't something that's going to suit your needs, keep looking for that type of technology. Stay tuned, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, because in the future, you'll be able to see what this light is able to do and if it can live up to the claims. Well, I'd like to thank HHE for sending this light to me so that I can test it. I'd like to thank all of you guys for watching this video. If you found it useful, please give me a thumbs up, and happy gardening.